Well, time to have strangers call me a racist on YouTube. I promised myself that this video was going to be less than 10 minutes long, so I'm not going to spend too long on this. This is, after all, a mid-series review. And I know what the response is going to be because the top most toxic fan bases, not in any particular order, are Taylor Swift fans, BTS fans, we'll throw in Rick and Morty fans as well, Harry Potter fandom, and somewhere near the top of that are Star Wars fans. And I'm saying this as a Star Wars fan. It's really toxic fandom. And they're drinking the ObiWan Kenobi Kool-Aid.
Oh yeah, here comes Kool-Aid.
There's nothing you can do to change a lot of people's minds about this. But, sincerely, from the bottom of my heart, this show's awful. It's bad. It's aggressively bad. It's offensive to anybody who actually watched and remembered anything from a Star Wars movie. And I want to address the elephant in the room first. Moses Ingram is neither a good actress in this show, nor the problem or a bad actress in this show. Disney movies don't typically win Oscars for acting. There are movies that Walt Disney Pictures has produced that have won awards for Best Actress or Best Supporting Actress or Best Actor. None of them are Star Wars related, as far as I'm aware. In the last 10 years, the only ones that I can think of where anybody's won anything have been Nomadland, Bridge of Spies with Tom Hanks, and The Help. So there are way deeper problems than Moses Ingram's acting in here, okay? I don't really think it tips the scale in either direction for me. I haven't seen The Tragedy of Macbeth, although I've heard good things. I will not be watching Ambulance because I won't watch anything that Michael Bay produces or directs because I just can't. After Transformers, I can't do it to myself. But I need this to be clear. Disney engages in tokenism and weaponizes minorities that they cast in their shows as a defense against valid criticism of the show itself. And this in no way minimizes or attempts to defend in any way, shape, or form anybody who uses racial slurs against celebrities on Instagram and Twitter. Okay? If you use a racial slur as a defense or as an offensive attack against a piece of content, you and I have nothing to say to each other. I don't even regard you as intelligent enough to speak with. Disney always does this. Disney always does this where they have an actress or an actor who's receiving a lot of criticism for their role. And lots of times it's not warranted, I don't think. But Disney will write a piss-poor plot or a piss-poor character. The fans, being delusional, and Star Wars fans being among the worst, will go at those actresses or actors, and then any criticism at all leveled against the show at any point is now considered racist or is now considered problematic or toxic. There's a couple examples of this. Moses Ingram being the most recent one. But before that, Miss Tran in The Last Jedi, which her character is awful. It's awful. Her character's bad. But it has nothing really to do with her acting. It's just a bad movie. It's one of the worst movies that's ever been released ever. It's the same thing with Hayden Christensen. People gave him crap all the way through the first two movies and even into the third movie. And I thought Hayden Christensen was, even though sometimes he came across as about as soulful as a block of wood, the prequels weren't really any of his fault. They really, most of it, had nothing to do with him. He was a child actor. All child actors suck, as a general rule. And in episode 3, I actually thought he was decent. And in episode 2, you can't blame Hayden Christensen for George Lucas's emo love dialogue.
I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating. and it gets everywhere.
All the time. Fans will, in a way that's disproportionate, go after actresses and actors for things that are outside of their control. That being said, all of the criticisms that you're hearing of the Kenobi show are real, and Disney trying to paint you as a racist for not liking the subpar content that they write is a really dirty trick, and it's tokenism, and it's gross, and it feels gross, and they should feel gross, and you shouldn't feel gross for not liking this, because there's a lot of things not to like. You're going to have a lot of people that say that any criticism of the Kenobi show is basically you outing yourself as a racist. Just point to all three of these characters, all three of which were beloved. Probably some of, if not the most beloved characters in their trilogies. Mace Windu, there are Star Wars fans that are still pissed off that there's no show about Mace Windu or any Mace Windu cameos or anything like that in the sequel trilogy. He was one of the best characters in the prequels. Lando Calrissian was one of the coolest characters in the originals. And Finn, before they absolutely destroyed any and all aspects of his character that were interesting, he was one of the most interesting characters that there were. Okay? So, when they try and tell you that you're a racist, these three characters, most people in the trilogies liked. Okay? Most Star Wars fans like these characters. You're not a racist because you think that a show that has a black actor or actress in it sucks. It's not your fault that Disney can't write worth a darn. And as evidence that Disney can't write worth a darn, these are the biggest problems that Kenobi suffers from. Aside from the pacing, which is not great, aside from the fact that it's just there's not much going on. Nothing goes on in the show. It's kind of boring. It makes The Mandalorian look high-paced and high-octane. It's like the people who wrote it didn't even read it. It's like they didn't even watch the movies or read anything. It's like someone described Star Wars to them and then they kind of wrote like a rough outline and then it got through all the people. For example, you're going to have a lot of people that are like, oh, like the whole Leia thing, the Leia story's boring. It's boring. It doesn't make any sense. She's outrunning bounty hunters. She's like 10 years old. It doesn't make any sense in any context whatsoever. And then on top of that, one of the most iconic things about Princess Leia in Episode 4, right? The line where she's like, help me, ObiWan Kenobi, you served with my father in the Clone Wars. If that's the only time, if they went on this adventure together, where her and ObiWan Kenobi were making their way, right? They are running through this whole gauntlet. It doesn't make any sense, number one, that she only refers to him as serving with her father in the Clone Wars.
General Kenobi, years ago you served my father in the Clone Wars. Now he begs you to help him in his struggle against the Empire.
That doesn't make any sense, because she knows him from a much more personal experience that she would actually reference as a normal human by saying, hey, you and I were in this big shindig where we were fighting Vader and stuff, and let me get into that real quick. Vader commanded the Inquisitor, played by Moses Ingram, to get Kenobi to show himself by kidnapping a senator who used to know Kenobi in the hopes that they were still in contact.
So we're all on board now. This is a stupid plan.
And that's the generous explanation. And it's still ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Or what they think is that Vader knows about the connection between Leia and Kenobi, and that destroys the logic of 4, 5, and 6 because he knows that Leia is his daughter. Okay? So, both of those things, completely freaking insane. I hope it's the first one, and that they're only that stupid instead of attempting to be that stupid, but the whole Leia thing doesn't work. It doesn't make any sense. It breaks the logic of the previous trilogy. And, I mean, like, even look at, like, Vader finding out in this series that the Inquisitor, right, like, the Inquisitor tells him that Vader's alive, doesn't make any sense. Because either he doesn't know whether or not he lived or died, right, which it's been 10 years. It's been 10 years since the events of Episode 3. And in those 10 years, ObiWan Kenobi has never had access to any news about the Empire whatsoever. At the end of Episode 3, Vader is standing next to the Emperor. Right? He's standing next to the Emperor. And they're building the Death Star. So he's actively taking place in the Empire. quickly becoming feared. He's feared when he walks into a room with the Inquisitors, right? The Inquisitors don't even want to say his name in the show, but you're telling me that nobody knew who he was? Not a single person knew who he was? It doesn't make any sense. Or the other alternative explanation is that ObiWan Kenobi somehow didn't get that there was a connection between Vader and Anakin, didn't know that they were the same person, which doesn't make any sense because in episode 3 they literally watch a hologram wherein he says that and Yoda refers to Anakin as Lord Vader.
You have done well, my new apprentice. Now, Lord Vader.
It doesn't make any sense. None of it makes any sense at all. It's freaking dumb. And speaking of Darth Vader, I'm sorry, like, I never thought I would say this. I hate him. Watching Darth Vader on screen is the worst. It's an absolute chore. It sucks. It sucks. I'm sorry. Him fighting with ObiWan Kenobi is a chore. It doesn't make any sense why Kenobi's not dead inside of 2 minutes, except that they're like, he's playing with him. But then he takes him and he puts him up in the air. He like force holds him in the air. And then burns him by dragging him across the ground that's on fire. Which, you're going to have to explain to me now why Kenobi doesn't have horrifying third-degree burns and injuries. You have to explain that to me now. How does he not have that in episode 4? And also, when he says, last time I was but the student, now I am the master, he just handed Kenobi his entire rear in the can. He just kicked his trash all over the yard. So, what aspect of that is him being the learner and then becoming the master in episode 4? Unless you're telling me that they're going to have another fight wherein Kenobi is going to relearn how to be awesome at lightsaber fighting inside of 4 more episodes that they have. And then, what? I'm supposed to like now look at the story with more respect? Vader now sucks even more. So congrats. It doesn't make any sense. It makes no sense. It's really irritating that Disney wrote it this way. It's like, it reminds me of the Halo TV show, actually, is what it reminds me of. Like, when they did that Variety interview and they said we didn't even, like, play the games, we didn't even look at the games, we just wrote it. It doesn't make any sense. Like, it doesn't make any sense to do it that way. And so, the point of this video, and it's a very short video, but the point of this video, you are not a racist because you don't like this TV show. This TV show is objectively trash. It's awful. It's freaking garbage. And Disney is trying to use token minority characters that they cast as scapegoats to defend the fact that they have no ability to make anything good in the Star Wars universe anymore. They've made 2 productions. There's been 1 movie, Rogue One, and there's been 1 TV show, The Mandalorian, that have been redeemable, that have had redeeming aspects to them, that have even at times been good. Everything else is subpar garbage. It's awful. It's trash. It's terrible. And you don't have to mince words. You don't have to pretend like it's good. Okay? It's awful, and you don't have to pretend to like it. Disney's going to do this where they try and label it like you and like a moron or a racist for not agreeing with them on something. Disney makes trash content. They haven't made a good movie since Infinity War Part 1. It's the last time they made a good movie. So, don't feel bad about it. Kenobi sucks. And if you're a Star Wars fan at heart, yeah, you should probably feel sad about it because you're probably just going to get a whole bunch of this, just a whole bunch of half-baked nostalgia garbage porn, like all over your screen. That's what you're going to get. It's not going to get any better. I hope that I'm wrong. I know that you hope that I'm wrong, and that's totally fine to root for Star Wars. But just understand, the people you're dealing with are going to monetize and commercialize every single aspect of Star Wars until there's nothing left. Until you hate it, until you hate looking at Darth Vader's face. It's just what they're going to do. And it's sad. It's really sad because it's one of the most popular, it's the most popular story on Earth. One of the most popular stories on Earth. And it's just, it's going to suffer because the people in charge like money more than they actually like making things that are good. And it's sad. It's really sad. Anyways, those are all the problems with Kenobi at the moment. There's so many more that we could go into, but those are the big ones. And don't feel bad for recognizing that the things suck when they suck.